We are back. It's the Joe Holka Show presented by FanDuel. It's our DFS first look at NFL Week 14, a true reaction of pricing and efficiencies and how we see ownership shaking out as we transition into a new week. We'll build a first look lineup at the end, so stick around, as well as a special surprise at the quarterback position. Josh Allen is 8,800 against Tampa Bay. That's probably going to be the marquee matchup on this slate, 425. Brady Allen, an interesting one. Patrick Mahomes back on the main slate, 8,500. What the hell do we do with Patrick Mahomes? Just they can't get it together for like stringing a couple weeks in a row at this moment. Like they basically win that game on Monday Night Football with their defense, which is crazy. So that's a interesting price tag, I think, against the Raiders. Justin Herbert, 8,400. Tom Brady, 8,200. So a lot of like really high-end quarterbacks on the slate. Dak Prescott's back on the main slate also. Lamar Jackson, 7,900 against Cleveland. What do you think about the top end in this one? And do you agree that Buffalo-Tampa Bay looks like it might be kind of the marquee matchup on this one?
Yeah, I think from maybe like a game selection standpoint, you could see people getting over Buffalo's defense kind of being tough because it's Brady and Godwin and Evans and Fournette and just the Bucs in general, right? So people might excuse a slightly difficult matchup there. So yeah, I could see that side of it. I do think I prefer the Buffalo side of that football, for sure. I'm kind of still down to attack any teams against the Bucs and in a high total game, and then you have extremely talented wide receivers as well. So that looks good. What's interesting is the last game that Patrick Mahomes played well in was when he torched the Raiders.
That's true.
And
they refused to change their defensive scheme. Remember everyone was talking about that? How they just like, you literally like, there's like the blueprint on like what's been giving Mahomes trouble. And the Raiders are like, nah, we're going to do our own thing.
Yeah, dude.
Makes no
did
sense.
Not care.
Yeah.
So
that did not go well for them.
That is interesting. I wonder if that narrative gets tossed around a little bit. But I actually think I might even prefer coming down a little bit and going back to Dak Prescott here with a fully healthy wide receiver core, or at least what appears to be an all active wide receiver core. I don't know if we can throw around fully healthy, but
sure.
Washington's been pretty friendly to opposing pass catchers and wide receivers. Elliott's knee issue might have them leaning more towards unique plays for Pollard, more passing plays, maybe a little bit of that less run. And then I think Washington can be competent and keep them, throwing the ball a little bit more than they would want to anyways. And that's a significant discount from a guy like Josh Allen.
Mm-hmm. Man, a lot of pass attempts too. Maybe that is part of the reason, because they just like Zeke's been banged up, right? So they haven't been able to really get the running game going with Zeke. When they give the ball to Pollard, it looks pretty good. But yeah, man, 40 pass attempts last week, 47 the week before. And if they're going to be completely healthy, definitely don't mind going back to Dak. I think that's a great call. Lamar against Cleveland, like these later in the year, and I know you like to mention this sometimes too, later in the year, these like division matchups, the second one, we do see those games go under a little bit more often. So we'll keep an eye on that. Russell Wilson against Houston. That's going to be the one that I think some people are going to be gravitating towards just because it's Houston. But I'm kind of out on Russ, man. I just can't like actively click that one and feel good about it. And maybe that's just a weird bias that I've developed. But do you have any interest in Russell Wilson at 7,500 against Houston?
No, I think I would find the 600 to get to Dak, or I definitely think I just go down to a guy like Derek Carr against Kansas City for 7,200 if you're really looking to save some money here. Cam Newton bounce back spot against Atlanta, so like, yeah. I mean, that's always an option too. I'm probably done with him as well, but I don't hate it. And then you've got, like, I don't know, what's the status on Burrow and his finger? He continued to play through that game, so I got to imagine everything's okay.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to be limited in practice, at least for like the beginning of the week, but it was a dislocation of his pinky finger, which seems not
then.
Great. Like, didn't we just have this conversation about Russell Wilson and everyone just like basically played him and didn't care and just got burned? So I don't know, man. Finger injuries for quarterbacks seems not great. We'll see if we get Jimmy G in this one. Like we were talking about it with Sig earlier today, that like when Trey Lance, man, like it's got to be time at some point. But man, Jimmy G is 6,700. But I guess there's like some risk, I think, that maybe he gets pulled even if he does start in this game. I don't see a lot of like the cheaper options that that stand out to me. Maybe Heineke against Dallas in that up-tempo game, but Dallas's defenses look pretty good
I don't
this
want to
year.
pick on Dallas. I think Washington might stay mildly competitive, so where we can get 38 to 42 pass attempts out of Dak, but I don't know if I want to use that side of the ball.
I'm with you. All right, let's move on to running back. We'll see kind of where ownership shakes out on some of the stacks, and then the quarterback landscape comes a little bit more clear at that point. We have Austin Eckler at the top. He's 9,200. All he does is score touchdowns. This past week, definitely a down week for him. Does get in the box, but only 59 rushing yards on the ground and a pretty great matchup. But yeah, I mean, he's still active in the passing game. He had almost 20 touches in this one, and normally that's kind of been his cap, but 9,200 for a guy that has such a strong role around the goal line. Definitely still interested in going back to Austin Eckler at the top. Joe Mixon, neck injury. He did come back into that game and score. So that's kind of interesting. We'll keep an eye on his injury status. 19 rush attempts. Just one target in this game is a little bit of a concern. And Alvin Kamara against the Jets, man. Are we going to get him back this week? He had that MCL injury. I wasn't sure how long it was going to be before he was back, but playing him off of a knee injury, even against the Jets, would be pretty scary at that price point. Leonard Fournette, 7,600. Cordero Patterson, 78. These guys never move in terms of their price. I mean, I don't really like the top end of running back, like first glance. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I do. Just like a quick note on Herbert and Eckler there. I feel like we probably lost 6 to 8 pass attempts out of Herbert in that game with some of those turnovers, which ultimately I think limits Austin Eckler's workload and the potentially of extending drives. And they were uber efficient at scoring touchdowns, like 3 passing touchdowns on like 36 pass attempts or something like that. Some super long deep balls. So I think his usage was still fine, like 19 total opportunities. So in a game where I think there was more turnovers than would normally like to I think that than you would normally see out of Justin Herbert. So yeah, the top end of the range here is definitely Austin Eckler though. Then I kind of, this is where like I think we just need to see how running back shapes out. Like, are we going to get another? Yeah, I think a massive tier break is McKissick and the Washington backfield going to shape out to how it was, on Sunday with just Antonio Gibson, because then that's another, like, how much.
Yeah, he's going to have to clear concussion protocol. I wasn't sure if it was still the head injury that was keeping McKissick out. So yeah, at that point, like I definitely think we can go back to Gibson if McKissick's out again, no doubt.
29 opportunities, bro, against the Raiders last week. Like,
dude, he had like, what was it, like 40 the week before? It was absurd. Yeah, 20 or 38 the week before, and then another 28 this past week, dude. It's absurd.
Like, that's the Antonio Gibson that we were all drafting. You know how we were all taking Calvin Ridley, Antonio Gibson, or whatever high-end tight end, Antonio Gibson. Like, can we get
better late than never,
these?
man. All those best ball teams are in like 7th now, though, so it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
So brutal. Eli Mitchell in that same range. If he's healthy, he left the game, came back, but man, he got a ton of work again against Cincinnati. I think that's a good spot for Eli Mitchell at 7,400. Saquon Barkley is 73 against the Chargers. We were just talking about how you can run on the Chargers. Maybe Saquon. This would be a nice spot for him. I haven't spent a lot of time really like looking to see kind of how he's like basically like if the burst is back, all of that stuff. But the volume looks pretty good, man. 9 targets last week. I mean, he's kind of got that split workload, but the majority of it coming through the air. It's just this team's not scoring many touchdowns, man. Like that's the biggest problem I have with Saquon on FanDuel is like he used to be the guy that you'd just jam in there. The volume's great, but he's also going to score the majority of their touchdowns. But like that, the Giants were moving the ball a lot better back then, man.
Exactly. The only other guys I continue to scroll down here, I think that might be super, super interesting is Javonta Williams against Detroit. Melvin Gordon saw like 17 rush attempts and a couple targets, I think just 2 or 3. So like just shy of 20 freaking opportunities against Kansas City last week. And, against the Chargers last week. I don't know what his game log looked like for against Kansas City.
Yep.
But dude, if we can get a Javonte Williams week at $6,700, I'm all in against Detroit.
I'm hoping that this news comes earlier, right? Because obviously Melvin Gordon was out last week. Like it's a hip injury, right? So like I guess we're gonna have to figure out what the deal is with timeline on that one. Yeah, like scrolling down a little bit, I guess if Swift is not back, we could go back to the Jamal Williams experience, which wasn't great last week. Outside of that, underneath, it's really not great. I'm probably not going the Adrian Peterson route in Seattle, unfortunately. If any of you guys want to go there, best of luck. Yeah, I don't know. The Buffalo running backs I've been kind of steering clear of, even though Zach Moss hasn't really even been active in some of these games, but very cheap for both of these guys. Like everyone that FanDuel doesn't know what to do with, they just put them at 5,500 and see if someone's going to play them. You know what I mean?
Here's your lottery ticket.
Yeah. Any interest in the Kansas City running backs? Again, they're priced right next to each other. So it's kind of what they're doing, man. They're just like literally like go ahead, guys. Pick whoever you want.
Good luck. Good luck. We're not going to give you any type of a price discount to help you make a choice.
Exactly.
No, I don't. I think the biggest news here will honestly just be monitoring Melvin Gordon going forward.
Agreed. Before we move on to wide receiver, I want everyone to go to fanduel.com/Holka and join the listener league, or just click the link in the description. It's a $5 entry, rake-free, 3-max tournament. Honestly, one of the best, if not the best contest in all of DFS, so get in there before it fills. That link does support the channel, especially if you're a first-time player. Maybe just been a while since you played on FanDuel, so thank you for restarting that journey at my link. I truly appreciate it, and tell your friends. All right, wide receiver. Tyra Kill is 8,700. You're really not getting much of a discount on him, despite the last few weeks. So that one will be an interesting one ownership-wise, I think, if people are willing to go back to that. And Stephon Diggs, 8,200. CeeDee Lamb, 7,800. Will we get Amari back? Because I'm scrolling down. 6,700. And I know he played on Thanksgiving, but he did not look great. But that's a great price point for him. I could see him gaining a little bit of steam because I think this game is going to be popular. I think you're absolutely right with the Dak stacks again.
Yeah, I definitely think this game is popular. I think CeeDee Lamb is without a doubt the highest owned wide receiver in this entire range, probably from 7,600. And I mean, I would even throw DK in like an ownership conversation. But if we just look at price, from a price standpoint, coupled with ownership, 7,600 and up, CeeDee Lamb is the highest owned wide receiver in this tier. And then I don't. He might even be the highest owned wide receiver on the slate. It just really depends on what price shakes, what price looks like for some of these other cheaper guys.
Yeah, and McLaurin in that same game, 7,100. So that's going to be one that I think is not going to be that price prohibited just to get in there. Jamar Chase, they moved him down a little bit. He's 7,200. T. Higgins, 68 now. So I guess the gap is closing a little bit on those guys. It was pretty wide for a few weeks. And then Hunter Renfrow is still going to be an optimals. He's 6,700. No one plays him, so his price doesn't move. But he has been very, very consistent. Brandon Cooks in this Seattle game, if you want to stack that up, 6,500. Brandon Ayuk still 6,400. Brandon Ayuk was a few plays away, or a few drops away, I should say, from having a really big game also. So I don't know. That's a tough one, but that seems like a reasonable price.
It's still unfortunate to only see him get targeted 6 or 7 times or whatever it was with no Debo. And I know like Debo still gets used in the backfield and stuff, so you can't just like fully shift those targets over. But obviously it was a Kittle game. So
yeah, obviously. Any love for Michael Gallup at 6,100?
Yeah, especially if there's no Amari. I think Gallup gets elevated. Even with Amari playing, I still think this is probably that great onslaught where you just go Dak, CD, Gallup. And in all honesty, I'm not even sure you have to bring it back with Terry McLaurin or one of the other pass catchers in that offense. If there is no J.D. McKissick and Antonio Gibson looks like he's set up for a massive workload. I think that's a run back that I'm okay with, even though it's a running back and not an opposing team's wide receiver. But in all honesty, I'd be fine like just playing this game kind of uncorrelated on the other side. You don't have to force anything, just with how good like Diggs has been and that secondary has been in general. So yeah.
I'm with you. I think that, yeah, like the target share, you would think like condenses a little bit in Dallas with Cedric Wilson and that ankle injury. So keep an eye on that if he is going to be playing. Noah Brown all the way down at 4,700 if you want to get freaky with that one. Speaking of freaky, let's talk about tight end. There's no one to pay up for in this Dallas-Washington game. Dalton Schultz is only down to 5,700 now. If we put everyone back in, like I should have from the start, Kittle is 7,500, or Kittle is 7,100, sorry. Kelsey is 7,500, and then Gronk is 7K. So like, I don't know, man. I didn't think that we would see Gronk up here ever again. I thought it was done. And he just keeps scoring touchdowns every single week, man. And he looks great. Like he's got, like, I don't know, like that old Gronk swagger to him, man. So I don't know what to do with that against Buffalo. Obviously, it's not a great situation, but man, like it's just getting to the point now where they just keep moving his price up because everyone keeps playing him and everyone keeps getting paid off, man. And I just haven't really benefited from that a ton.
Yeah, look, I think the Gronk stuff is definitely tough. I think clearly just part of Tom Brady's stacks. I don't think you pay up for him by himself. I won't pay for Kittle. The guy blocks too much for my liking, and then he has those monster games.
We're not chasing the Kittle game, right? Can we agree on that?
No, yeah, in no way, shape, or form.
They didn't waste any time pricing him up again, though, because like he was what, like 60 something last week. Now he's 7,100 again. So
yeah, he saw a nice little price hike there. Yeah, I think maybe it's like a Dawson Knox type game against Tampa Bay.
6K.
Kyle Pitts definitely at a sweet price there against Carolina.
Yeah, that's so there's a couple guys down there. It's like him and Dalton Schultz at like sub 6K that I think is going to get a decent amount of love down there. At least they should. We'll see if we get Darren Waller back. Was he out multiple weeks with that knee injury? It was a back as well, it looks like.
Yeah,
so.
I think we'll need to see exactly how practice progresses for him and exactly what that's going to shape out. Here's my thing with Pitts though, because this price point actually seems too cheap.
Mm-hmm.
He as a player carries touchdown equity even though his team doesn't necessarily give it to him. Does that make sense? Like typically we look at these tight ends and we're like, good high implied team total, red zone opportunities because they're constantly pushing the ball downfield. That just like doesn't happen with Atlanta as often as we all thought it was going to. But if they do get down there, he does carry touchdown equity. I think a lot. Like maybe Tyler Conklin is the only other guy who's getting more targets in the end zone than Pitts. So don't quote me on that. But the point is,
I'm with you.
That's too cheap. That's too cheap.
Pitts is kind of an interesting case because he's basically trotting out there as a wide receiver and he just hasn't really shown the ability to beat elite corners. So he really needed Calvin Ridley to be out there, man, to have like his like crazy season that we expected from a guy this talented. So maybe it's a year too early on seeing those Kyle Pitts explosions. Hopefully we get Calvin Ridley back playing football, man. Mark Andrews is the only guy we kind of didn't touch on. At the higher end against Cleveland, 6,900, pretty nice price tag for him, but I don't know, man. Tight end, I think like always, we're gonna have to see what happens, what gets steamed up, but a lot to pay up for. Kind of like quarterback this week, it's like very, very top heavy.
Yeah, I agree. I still think Kyle Pitts is too cheap. Sorry.
All right. Let's do it then. Let's build a lineup. But before we do that, I wanted to remind everyone that we do have a second YouTube channel now. So I want everyone to take a second and subscribe to that. Going to post a bunch more clips from the guests as well as a bunch of exclusive picks every single week. Could use your guys' help. Link in the description. That will take you right to it. Or if you're watching this live, it is the pinned link in the chat right now. I think we have almost 500 people on the new channel, Hodge. I'm going to be giving away a Justin Herbert rookie card to one lucky person once we hit 1K. Hopefully it's this week, man. Let's build a lineup, a first look lineup. There are some people that I saw in the comments. I see you people in the comments that were talking about our lineup last week. We build this on Mondays, guys. This should not be a lineup that you're trotting out on Sunday, for the record. But where are we starting? Are we going to start with your boy Kyle Pitts then?
No. Let's start with the Dak stack. Yeah, I think so. You just want to go CD Gallup.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just two guys who are priced.
So then my question is, we bring him back with Terry, or we bring him back with Gibson?
I would prefer Gibson, I think.
Same. Remember, we already said there's like really not a lot up there outside of Eckler, right? So I think that's still fine to get up to Gibson at 7,400. Let's see if there's any defenses down here so I can kind of picture where we're looking here. Jets are the only home defense against New Orleans. They're 3K. That doesn't seem so bad with Taysom Hill. Houston against Seattle is at home. We have Washington at home against Dallas, but we already have the Dallas stack. Kansas City is 3,700 against the Raiders.
I think KC against the Raiders.
I like that.
Arrowhead's
at home, Arrowhead.
All
right, 6,700 the rest of the way. Any other thoughts?
No, I think let's knock out tight end. And in all honesty, I don't think that we have to play Kyle Pitts. Like I actually almost may prefer Dawson Knox at 6K. Or, like if we didn't play Gallup, I think we could use Schultz pretty easily. So like that's an option for us. I'm not opposed to playing Foster Moreau here at $5,200, even with Kansas City. Whatever. Right. I'm not overly concerned about that. So like, I think that's more of just like a Waller thing.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if we did go the Dawson Knox route, if we wanted to go with Fournette. The volume has been there, man. It's just like such a tough, I guess, spot to play against Buffalo. Defense has just been so good. So let's go with I kind of like the Kyle Pitts call, but I think we should go with that. Like, let's go with our first instincts. And our first instincts was that he's just way too cheap. So
he's too cheap for like literally a floor of 6.5 targets. Like I'm actually gonna go game log surf right now as we're building.
Mm-hmm.
Lowest target count on the season after like week 4 is 5.
Wow. Okay.
He had 3 targets in week 3, and that looks like an injury to me. That looks like a time that he may have just left early. So like it's just too cheap for a tight end for that many targets.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to kind of look at too was this past week and just like some of the targets. Like sometimes you look at like I guess miss some of this stuff while watching Red Zone. Like I didn't even realize that Godwin had 17 targets in this game. Is that true?
Dude, out of control. And of course I'm over here clicking Mike Evans.
Yeah, exactly. Justin Jefferson, 54% of the air yards for Minnesota.
Dude,
obviously he's not on the main slate.
Game.
T. Higgins, 48% of the air yards. So like T. Higgins, like still seeing crazy volume, 14 targets, 50% of the air yards basically. So like I wanted to see if there was any of those guys that really stood out from a price perspective. And I think to me, it's honestly, it's still T. Higgins, man. He's 6,800.
I wholeheartedly agree here. It's a Monday. We're just gonna put this in anyways. Obviously, y'all should be monitoring that status. But look, I said it preseason. I said it after the Jamar Chase breakout stuff. I still said it yesterday. T. Higgins is the alpha in this wide receiver, and I think he will be going forward.
Whew, man, I don't know. I don't know if he's the alpha, but the volume is going to be there for sure. So I'm with you. I think he's still at a really nice price point. 7,100 the rest of the way. We could just put an Eckler and see if we can even put anyone in the flex after that. Probably not. 5K. So we're priced out. Priced out of Eckler. We could go Fournette. We could just do a mini stack with our T. Higgins and play Eli Mitchell. I guess we just assume that he's going to be healthy. I know he kind of left the game and came back. So I don't mind Eli Mitchell in there. We just saw that Drake was he got injured, right? So maybe Josh Jacobs continues to see more work. But we have KC defense on here, which isn't great. But I just wanted to, we didn't talk about Jacobs. I think he's interesting. We could play Javonta and just hope that Melvin Gordon doesn't play. I do want to highlight that though, because as a first look, like we don't even know about Melvin Gordon yet. But if Melvin Gordon's not in, Javonta Williams is like one of the best plays on the slate.
Agreed.
So against Detroit. So
let's
if we do that,
make
7,500.
Yep, agreed. And so now we have 7,500 left in the flex.
Could play Eli Mitchell still.
Yeah, we could still play Eli Mitchell. We could flex Kelsey. That could be fun against Las Vegas, who I actually think you can kind of eat underneath against. I should double check what their opponent plus minus is to tight ends.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we have like a full myriad of options here, and I think from a volume standpoint and a matchup standpoint, it's probably just playing Eli Mitchell.
I was just going to say, like, if Hodge is going to talk us into a double tight end, that's fine. It's Eli Mitchell for me at 7,400.